Hello, welcome to another episode of Varsity360. I'm Columbian sports editor Micah Rice, joined today by Will Denner, and we're coming to you again from the First Pacific Financial Studio. So thank you again for allowing us to use this space and for their support of high school athletics. And Will, it is almost Christmas, which means that the winter sports season is in full swing. And we're here to talk about what we think is one of the more compelling storylines in Clark County for winter high school sports, and that's the Camas girls basketball team. Not only are the Camas girls on a quest for what they hope will be a state championship after reaching the Class 4A state title game last year, they have taken that quest on kind of a winding journey that went all the way to the nation's capital a couple weeks ago. So we're here to talk about that journey, this team, and what could be one of the best girls basketball rivalries in the area, if not the state. So Will, you saw Camas go and get a little bit of revenge. They took on Eastlake, which beat the Papermakers in the Class 4A state championship game last year. This time, Camas came out on the winning end of that, winning 58-46 at home. What'd you see out there in that game?
Yeah, so, it wasn't payback or revenge maybe in the most direct sense. It's obviously they don't get to take the trophy away from Eastlake or anything like that, but it was obviously a good feeling for a Papermaker squad that, had high hopes for last year and came up just a little bit short in that state championship. But this time around, I think the thing that stuck out the most was just how willing the Papermakers were to mix it up and kind of be physical against an Eastlake team that also really likes to do that. Whether you look at kind of the rebounding battle or all the steals they had, or even a couple instances after the whistle where maybe there's a box out or somebody's going for like a reach in the backcourt and there's a little bit of pushing and shoving. But Camas really kind of seemed to thrive in that situation, and they didn't back down. Like I said, I mean, just really seemed to enjoy kind of the chippiness almost of it, and get, perhaps a little bit of revenge against that Eastlake team.
Yeah, and Camas is not physically the biggest team. They have a couple girls that are right around 6 foot. Obviously, they only have one true post player, and that's an Addison Harris, the Montana State commit. But I thought, reading about that and the mentality that they aren't a finesse team anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, I think last year in that state championship, Scott Thompson, their head coach, was talking about how well they were a very skilled team. Obviously, can do a lot of things well. They kind of lacked that ability, and like you said, I mean, Addison Harris is kind of their go-to post option. Reagan Jameson is kind of a bit of a swing wing and can also play outside as well. And having her back as well, she sat out for a big portion of last year, and although she was able to return in the postseason, I don't think ever really got back to 100%. She is now 100%. And then you go down their same starting five of Kiara Thompson and Riley Sands and Sophie Buzzard, and then obviously having the two Mares sisters off the bench combined with senior Brianna Forbes. It's looking like this is going to be a squad that will contend and a year older, a year wiser, and now they have some experience not only in the state but around the country as well.
Well, before we talk about their trip to Washington D.C., let's kind of go back to the origin story of this squad. This has been a multi-year in the making journey. You mentioned all those starters and the 4 seniors that they have, and then the 2 excellent juniors that also are contributing to that. This is a group that's played together really since they were, I got to think, in elementary school, but they've always, when we've talked to Coach Scott Thompson in the past, it's always been kind of building up toward this year that they knew while they were right on the precipice of a state championship last year when most of that group were juniors. But it's all been sort of leading to this climactic point in their high school careers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really did start before high school, but, even from the time that this senior group were freshmen, that would have been that spring 2021 COVID year when they felt like they really, would have liked to get a chance to compete at state just to see how they measured up, even though they were quite a bit younger then. They got that opportunity during the 2021-22 season, got their first ever state trophy. Then they go again last year and get that runner-up finish. And now they're a very experienced group, and it starts with that senior class and a good class of juniors as well.
I think what I noticed most last year was the fluidity in their play. If you haven't watched Camas play in person, it's really like almost like an encore ballet, the way they pass the ball. They're always looking to make that extra pass. The way they generate shots and opportunities and share the ball. You look at some of their box scores, they might have 24 field goals and 22 assists. Right. And so it's sort of that fluidity that really stuck out to me. When you talk, or what did you observe, and what do you feel like is the philosophy behind their offense?
I mean, I just think it's unselfish, really. I mean, and it starts with Kiera Thompson, obviously their point guard, who is one of the best passing guards I think I've ever seen in the state of Washington recently. But it's just unselfish. I mean, I think of a play like last Friday of, Kendall Mayers passing the ball to, I think it was Brianna Forbes, and immediately cutting to an open spot to get an easy layup. I mean, it's just things like that, it's pretty simple stuff, really, but they thrive on it. They don't mind who's the leading scorer and things like that. They're just a very unselfish team, and I think that's a big reason behind their success. Well,
and I think that's why a team like that kind of prides itself on chemistry can really benefit from an excursion like they took to Washington, D.C. It's, some teams would look at that as a bonding experience, but for Camas, I got to think this is more just we know what we have together, so let's go and capitalize on that and take a trip that is going to be memorable far beyond their high school career.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it was a 6 or 7 day trip, and of course, the off the court stuff was pretty special as well. They got to visit a lot of historical sites in the DC area, go to a college basketball game, go ice skating, and all kinds of fun things to do on the East Coast. But then on the court as well, I mean, they play 3 great teams in between the Capital Invitational and the She Got Game Classic, and they ended up going 1-2 at that tournament. But to them, it really wasn't about the wins and the losses so much as the overall experience. And it's a rare thing for a team like Camas to get to do. I mean, really any high school team to get to do that. But the thing that Scott Thompson kind of wanted to emphasize when I talked to him last week was that this team earned that right. It's not like any team can just go sign up for these tournaments. They got invited to a few of these events, and after that, it was just kind of a matter of fundraising their way over there. And Scott was like, they earned this. It was just kind of up to me to find a way to get them there. And they felt like this tournament in particular was a good one for them, and just not really the kind of opportunity that they would get necessarily playing close to home, and they felt like they had to go on the road, and obviously that helped them against Eastlake last Friday as well.
Well, and I'm happy just as a high school sports observer and fan that they were able to do this experience under the umbrella of the high school team, whereas so many players, especially at the top level, they seek out this kind of exposure and experience through either a travel team or a charter school or an AAU club. And so for this to happen under the auspice of a high school program, I think that's something that if you can keep that and have that happen and be an experience, I think that shows the value of not bailing on your high school team.
For sure, yeah. This is still a homegrown team, obviously, and for them to get to do that, they felt like it was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. And like you said, we've seen a few players in recent years, opt to leave their high school team to go to a club situation as recently as Tate Spencer at Battleground going up to Seattle to play on a team last year. Mahala Harrison at Hudson's Bay did the same, went to an academy in Florida, and it helped her get to the Division I level. And then even a few years ago with Khalil Singleton at Fort Vancouver. It's obviously, again, it's not something that every high school team gets to experience. It's a rare opportunity, and sometimes players feel like they have to kind of seek these other opportunities out on their own because it will help them get to a higher level, maybe in college. But, the fact that the Camas is able to do it, like you said, through their high school and still get that exposure, still get the experience, but also for the greater good of the team as well.
Definitely. And yeah, no criticism at all of anyone who decides to make that leap and join an academy, because everyone's situation is different. But yeah, definitely a positive was seeing that Camas was able to, raise the funds and kind of set that as a goal for this season to go and get that experience. Yeah. Let's talk about kind of what they saw on the court in D.C. I think the capstone game, the third game that they played out of three against the reigning Class 6A Pennsylvania champion in was Archbishop Carroll. Yep. Archbishop Carroll. That game goes to overtime, so they you're seeing state championship level competition and getting a good game with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all three of those games, they won the first one against Merritt of DC, and that's a team that has 4 Division I players, I think, with offers. And then the second team is a great team from Chicago, Whitney, and then that Archbishop Carroll team. I mean, how often do you get to play, state champion in Pennsylvania and then come back home and play the Washington State champ as well? So, good experiences for them. And again, kind of circling back to what I was saying earlier, it's like the wins and losses weren't really the most important. It was just kind of, they saw this as a journey and they wanted to kind of figure out how to grow the best they could from it. So that's what they did.
What sort of anecdotes did you hear about their time there now that they stayed a little longer instead of, I guess that's a possibility now with online schooling and making sure you have all your tests sort of set up and everything that you can not fall behind there. But they stayed, they actually extended their time there to go see some more sites. What sort of stories did you hear about?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, and first of all, they did, do schoolwork while they were there as well, and gave a big shout out to assistant coach Lisa Schneider for helping them and, kind of, all of them dedicating study time. This was obviously within the high school academic calendar, so they were still figuring out how to do that. But aside from that, they, like I said, went to a few spots in kind of around the U.S. Capitol. They went to the National Mall, the Holocaust Museum. They went ice skating, and Kendall Mayers was saying it was pretty funny to see some very athletic people look unathletic doing that. Yeah. And then they went to a college basketball game. They saw Maryland play Northwestern in a Big Ten matchup, and and got to eat at some really cool places, it sounded like, and just make some memories that they'll probably remember for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, I mean, what an experience to get to do that as a 17 or an 18-year-old, and kind of see some of these players are going to go and play at the next level. And so whether it's Addison Harris or Kiera Thompson, who's or Kendall Mayers, who's being looked at more for her volleyball than her basketball.
And then Reagan Jameson will be going to Penn as well.
Yeah. And so it's almost like they got to get a little taste of going on a road trip and balancing those studies with the whole business trip mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's not only this term, obviously this was their longest trip, but they also went to Spokane the first weekend of the season. This week they're over in Lake Oswego, and then they have a tournament in Portland the following week. So they only have, I believe, 5 home games during the regular season, which you don't see too often at the high school level.
Well, so you go from that experience into 4A Greater St. Helens League play. But they'll obviously be favored to win most of those games. Yep. But within the confines of league play, you have what might be one of the better girls basketball rivalries, if not just in Southwest Washington, perhaps in the whole state. And that is with Union. Union has been really impressive to the start of this season. They're led by a guard tandem of Ava Smith and Brooklyn Haywood. Ava Smith, the sharpshooter, she broke the school record with 9 3-pointers in a single game. And then Brooklyn Haywood, considered perhaps the best sophomore in the state of Washington, already on a lot of recruiting services radars. And so you're not gonna be able to kind of let off the gas if you're Camas when those Union games come around.
For sure, yeah. Even though Camas won both of those games last year, I mean, I think Union has really kind of finding its form. I mean, last year everything was just so new for them between, Haywood coming in as a freshman and Ava Smith transferring ahead of her junior season from Camas to Union. So they needed a long time to kind of really find their identity. I remember talking to head coach Gary Mills the first time those two teams met, and Union put up a good fight, ultimately lost. But I think this Union squad now a year later has really found a little bit more of their identity. And to this point, we're recording this on a Tuesday. They're still undefeated. They had a nice win last weekend up at Gig Harbor, and even though they didn't make the state tournament last year, I think they're in a good position to make a run this year with what they have.
Well, and it's not just the two guards, Ava Smith and Brooklyn Haywood. You're starting to see more of that supporting cast step up. Rowan Riley is someone who can chip in offensively and then defensively as well. And so I think the more that they gel as a cohesive unit and not just have maybe one player go off for 30 points, the more sort of cohesion they get with that offense and that lineup, the more dangerous they'll be.
For sure. Yeah, it's Rowan Riley as well. Zoe Robards is kind of one of their big post players too. They don't have a ton of depth. I think, really in order for them, I think to be successful this year, it's just going to be a matter of staying healthy and keeping all those players on the floor, staying out of foul trouble and stuff like that as well. So maybe a little bit thin, but they have, some of the best three guards that you could ask for on any team.
Yeah, and for those of you who kind of follow the social media scene and everything, you might have noticed during the offseason that for a while, Brooklyn Haywood was actually enrolled at Camas. Right. It was kind of a time when I think she was also sort of dabbling in a prep school or one of those online travel squads, but ultimately she ends up back at Union, and for the Titans, that's that's one of the most dangerous weapons you can have in that position.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's good to see that it kind of ended up the way it did. I think Camas being what it is and, already kind of having their exact rotation established, it's good to see a couple other players like Brooklyn Haywood and Ava Smith kind of really blossom on their own at a different school. And I think it's better for the parity, not only of the league, but just, elevating another team like Union. So, it should be fun when those two teams meet. Yeah,
I don't think we want to get into the super team scene yet for high schools. Let's have some parity. Let's have some rivalries, and let's have these players go and find success, in the situation that suits them best.
Yeah, for sure.
So what are you most excited about when you look ahead to the basketball season, whether it's on the girls' side or the boys' side? Just sort of what are you looking forward to?
So much, but I would say one of the exciting storylines early is on the 2A Greater St. Helens League boys side. Columbia River had a really nice win recently against Mark Morris, and they seem to be for real. Mark Morris was the runner-up last year at the 2A level, and not only River, but you still have Ridgefield, who's always going to be in the mix. R.A. Long as well. I'm really excited to see how that league shakes out. It's Tim Martinez actually wrote the other day how it's much like the football season of all that parity in that league, and even on the girls side as well. I just caught the Ridgefield girls last night. They look to be one of the favorites at the 2A level on the girls side. River, the defending league champ, new head coach this year, but should be right up there as well. And then Hudson's Bay as well looks to be coming into form with a really nice trio of seniors. So I would say those are some of the things. I would also say at the 3A level, 3A boys in particular, with Evergreen, Prairie, and Kelso right at the top, looks really exciting. That Prairie team seems to be really balanced this year, and then Evergreen seems to be a year older and year wiser, and they, as always, have a lot of athletes. So those are a couple things on my mind. I'm sure I'm forgetting others, but those are some of the exciting ones.
Yeah, well, before we move on, if you want to see some Division I college football linemen in action, check out Kelso versus Evergreen.
That's right.
You talk about the athleticism on those teams. Well, in Kelso, you have 6'7", 250-pound Division I recruit Peyton Stewart.
Yep.
And then on Evergreen, you have another Division I lineman in Fox Crater. And so if you want to see, ironically, both of those kids kind of started out as basketball kids,
Right. Yeah.
but ended up really flourishing in football to ink their spot at the next level. Yeah. And so if you want to see sort of the size and agility and mobility that makes a Division I offensive lineman stand out, check out that game when they play.
For sure. And Peyton Stewart actually earlier today announced his commitment officially to Michigan State, which is exciting. And then obviously Fox Crater committed to Oregon right now. And for that Evergreen team, they have one of their biggest lineups in recent memory with Crater and Arthur Band, who's committed to San Diego State football as well. So yeah, a lot of great athletes at that 3A Greater St. Helens League level.
Well, I think we should close with the 3A Greater St. Helens League girls and a Mountain View team that's off to an impressive start.
Yeah, absolutely. And they actually added a couple transfers from that Union team that we were talking about earlier between Layla Sanderson and Jadelyn Sanderson, and Nina Peterson is now a senior for them and really looks to be coming into form. And they just seem to be, a really confident team. I think they had some of those pieces, but now they're just kind of coming into form, and they're, older and a little bit more experienced, and seem to be really gaining confidence through this early 2 to 3 week stretch to open the season.
Well, and I always love it when a team that maybe in recent years hasn't been as competitive as maybe some of the others kind of finds that group and finds that chemistry and can really elevate the program. And that's what Coach Dan Larson has been able to see happen early in the season with that group.
Absolutely. And yeah, they opened the season against Evergreen, which was really kind of that team last year, a team that hadn't won the league, I think, since like the 1980s or something. And then they win the league. And then Mountain View this year gets that win over them on opening night. So, and obviously Evergreen's a good team to watch as well, with the likes of Adrian Wright and Kimura Ross. But yeah, just, exciting storylines again early. And I totally agree. It's always fun when you kind of see a team that maybe has struggled a bit in recent years really find something early and look to be turning a corner as a program.
Well, it's just so wild that you start off in the season opener. You just jump right into league play. They don't even mess around in the 3A Greater St. Helens League. And so because of that really puts Mountain View in an advantageous position, already having a league win against Evergreen in their pocket. And so it sort of sets the tone for the rest of the season right away.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a whole other conversation about why they schedule it that way and the whole kind of 3A, 4A crossover breakdown, but we can save that for another day.
Well, yeah, we have to see what happens with reclassification
right.
and see which schools might move up or opt down or whatnot. But like you said, that's a conversation for another day. We're heading into the holidays. We're going to take a break next week on the show, but we'll be back the first week in January. By then, the league title chases will begin to sort of emerge. We will see kind of the landscape, but we'll also have a few stories to tell, probably from a couple of big wrestling tournaments. And as always, check us out on 360preps.com, and we will see you in the new year.